Hey folks, welcome to a bright new episode of LongShorts. This is Nikhil Arora and I have with me Mr. Sharad Chopran. Hey Sharad, how's it going, man? My standard question for you at the beginning of every podcast.
And I will come back with my standard answer at the beginning of every podcast. It's going well, cannot complain.
Cannot complain. Well done. So you are obviously not Elon Musk because he seems to complain a lot about how poor he is.
Cash because of his lack of liquidity.
Yes, so he apparently in a recent, testimony where, the litigators asked him about his finances, he said that, I'm worth 20 billion, but not a lot of it is cash. So, which was, I think, an important legal point he had to make.
Yeah.
Because if he loses the defamation suit, then his assets would become a fairly big mode of deriving compensation out of him. So, but obviously we are not going to go into that case.
Yeah.
Even though that's interesting, it has its origins in Twitter, I think.
Yeah.
That was when this bunch of boys were, I think, stuck in the tunnel and everything, and Mr. Musk obviously shot from the hip. Is that the expression?
Sure. Yeah.
Yes, and not the first time. I'm sure won't be the last.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you, Sharad, are not complaining, obviously, and we are going to talk about. It was a nice week. I think it kind of ended on a positive economic development. I think from our perspective, that the Reserve Bank of India, for a change, did not cut down interest rates on Thursday.
I know. Yeah, like after 5 consecutive rate cuts, I think the consensus view was that there'll be another rate cut. But surprise, rate hold at 5.15%.
And before we go into that, what else are we going to talk about? We are going to talk about, the most important topic of economic debate in our country. We're going to talk about onion prices.
Yeah.
We'll chat a bit also.
That is something that I'm complaining about.
Yes.
So I'll take my words back.
Are you? Yeah, the onion supply in your kitchen. Be very careful before you say anything. Because I think our FM rubbed the entire country on the wrong side when she was not very sympathetic to the onion. Yeah.
Next time they do a rate cut, which will be sometime next year.
Right.
I'll also ask her, well, you don't even need to borrow, then why do you care about rate cuts?
I don't know what is the liquidity status of our FM though. But that's an interesting point in terms of where you are the principal and where you are the agent.
Yeah.
When it comes to any
principal agent problem. Yes. Core textbook.
No skin in the game, as they say.
But tell me more about this. What do you think about it? I think it came as a surprise to most people that the rate was held and not cut. And
everybody was reporting that the 6th rate cut is like a done deal.
Yeah, right? I think stocks had moved as well.
And I think panels of economists all unanimously agreeing with each other. And I think you come from the world of consensus.
Yeah.
Right? You're a former equity researcher.
Yeah.
Is there a tendency to just like toe the line on consensus? I don't know. I think there is like a human thing that comes in, right?
There is definitely. People would rather be collectively wrong than be the only person wrong about something.
Right.
So they generally tend to navigate towards a consensus, safe-ish view.
But Mr. Shaktikanta Das proved them all wrong.
He did, yeah.
But I'm very happy. I was quite. I liked it. I actually my first comment was.
I recall as soon as it flashed on our smartphones, which we all subscribe to, news alerts, and I think the first thing that you said was, "Oh, thank God they've." Not gone on the same way. There's something different here. Obviously, there's a downward projection to economic growth, which has come down from 6.1 to I think 5%.
Right.
But barring that, we knew that there is a little bit of a slowdown, and they're talking about delay in revival of domestic demand. But overall, I think you took it positively.
Yeah, I was happy. Because I just think the entire idea of monetary policy is to always have headroom.
Sure.
Right? So that you can take future actions. That buffer has to be built in. And after 5 rate cuts, I was kind of getting worried that, not much of headroom is left. So it's good that we are kind of steady on that front. In terms of the GDP drop, not a surprise. The Q2 numbers came out. They were 4.5%.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's no wonder that the RBI also, cut down their annual forecasts.
Yeah.
So that was again in line. What's interesting is the MPC statement, like the press release of how they are rationalizing the rate hold. It's been a unanimous vote. So all the members of the MPC agreed on the rate hold. Obviously, there was a usual thing on, there's been some inflationary trends. So maybe, it's time to kind of, calm down on the rate hold. But another point that was being made was that the 5 rate holds have to first translate into bank lending rates going down.
Which is such an interesting phenomenon, because that's what the textbook says, and that's how the banks work. But there is some kind of numbers that are a little counterintuitive.
I mean, the mechanics by textbook is that you have the central bank. The central bank, obviously, I mean, in a so-called, I think that's called the fractional banking system. Like every bank actually puts in a bit of reserve with the central bank, right? And the central bank operates as a lender of last resort, or as a lender of liquidity for all the banks in general, and they kind of go through this via overnight lending repo rate market, right? So the central bank, RBI, basically lends to other banks at a particular rate, if you want to talk about this simplistically. And that's the repo rate. So the idea is that RBI, if it increases the rates, then the cost of funding, or part of the cost of funding for other banks, also goes up. And hence the rate at which they are borrowing also should technically go up. And that argument works both ways. But what has been happening in India for the last, I don't know, that's one of the monetary policy debate items which has been going on for the last decade or two, that RBI keeps on reducing or increasing rates, but it doesn't get translated at the consumer level. So, but
which is so unlike the Western world or the developed markets, right?
I mean, in the Western world, most banks are compelled to benchmark their lending rates to the central bank
overnight rate,
some way or the other, and that's happening in India now. So I mean, that's something that was explicitly mentioned, that the external so-called quote unquote external benchmark system, which came in this year, compels all scheduled commercial banks and NBFCs to actually have a clear correlation between their lending rates and the RBI's repo rate. And in spite of all that crackdown happening, I think in the last 1 year, you were mentioning, right, like cumulative over 4-5 rate cuts. What has been the cumulative reduction of the repo rate?
It's been 135 basis points for this year,
right?
And that's a number.
So that translated only to only 1/3 of it actually got translated
around 40-ish.
44 basis points, I think. That was the reduction at the loan level. So basically, if you want to take a home loan in the last 1 year, on average, your home loan interest rate has only gone down by 44 basis points. If you're taking a new loan, obviously, versus RBI's rate cut of 135 basis points. And that's what the RBI is kind of trying to hint, that, let's give some time for the system to catch up and translate the rate that we are giving. So that, it kind of makes sense before we, go into another rate cut.
So this year until now, the rate cuts have been 135 basis points.
Right.
So I think that's how we'll close the year as well. So let's just out of curiosity, let's put our calls on the line here. Next year, this time, we'll again be doing a podcast. And what do you think will be the total basis point terms? How much will be the rate cut for 2020, 2021 next year?
I mean, so it's an interesting exercise. I think that, in terms of, we are still officially in the accommodative stance as per the RBI. But I do hope that we are kind of slowly entering the realm of a bit of monetary tightening. So, I mean, I don't think it will be, at max, one can look at like a 15 to 20 basis points more legroom.
As inflation softens, I think maybe, let's just guess, I'll go with 50.
Because 2019 was a year of rate cuts, right? So, one can expect some recovery in 2020, at least in the medium term. So, we are going between 20 to 50 bips.
I think that. So, let's call it consensus of 35 or something like that.
So, what do we win?
Bragging rights.
Okay. And we'll do that. I told you so.
And since we are talking about this, let's talk about another macroeconomic or economic phenomena, which is such an India-specific one, it seems like, and that is prices of onions. Big Mac index is one, and we have the onion index here. We don't have it. But
we have onionomics. We had dosanomics, now we have onionomics.
And it's got such a economic / political, weight in terms of those discussions. I mean, for me, it's just a supply demand issue, isn't it? Or is there more to it?
I think on the political front, it kind of is onion reflects quote unquote the common man.
Yeah, correct.
And it very quickly becomes an elite versus non-elite debate. Like we were, I think, talking about it some time back, right?
Yeah.
Most of the guys who complain about the latte drinking Khan market elite are themselves drinking lattes in Khan market.
Yeah.
But I mean, that becomes a political discussion,
With
right?
onion rings on the side.
Yes, with onion rings on the side, exactly. I think, wasn't it former FM Chitambram, as soon as he was out of prison, he mocked the FM on the onion comment saying that, oh, what does she eat? Does she eat avocado or something?
Yeah.
So, you can sense that, avocado is kind of placed at one rich end of the spectrum and the onions are, for everyone else.
Yeah.
I won't dignify that. I think.
Sure.
More, I think a lot of people are already commenting on that.
Yeah.
But it does have. I was reading this interesting article it was a BBC story, and it's nicely titled "Onionomics: Peeling Away the Layers of India's Food Economy." It's an old article. It's 2014.
That's got a pun written all over it.
Yeah.
Peeling away the layers of India's food economy.
Peeling away the layers. Then you're reading a lot of stuff on onions tearing apart. The tears of onions. I mean, so copywriters are having
going crazy,
going ballistic on this. But it kind of in that there's an interesting quote. The demand for onions is completely inelastic. You cannot substitute it with any other vegetable. And I think that's the crux of it, right?
Sure, yeah.
I think...
especially for Indians,
we just take it for granted, right? Yeah. Everything is like onions and tomatoes have a role in pretty much anything that one makes. And as a result of it, I think people look at it as a utility.
Sure.
Right? Even though it's a commodity.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe that's a way to look at it.
No,
right?
I think that's a pretty interesting analogy. I've never thought about it like that, but I think you're bang on there because that's how people view it. Like water, electricity, and onions.
Yeah, I have a right to buy onions and I have a right to use them on a daily basis. Yeah. So if suppose, someone, especially if someone is from an economically weaker section and, they have, say you have a 200 or 300 rupee or a 150 rupee budget every day for buying your daily groceries, onion has a share of that, right? And that will, if it becomes suddenly 100 rupees per kilogram or 200 rupees per kilogram, it hits.
Yeah.
And cannot be substituted because it's a utility.
Yeah.
And I think pretty much, we are exposed to onion risk. We're not just exposed to crude oil risk.
Yeah.
So, and plus any kind of a comment which probably, belittles the sentiment is then taken as anti-poor.
Yeah.
Right?
If anyone's is a Jio subscriber and eats onion, which is a significant piece of in the Indian pie,
right,
your costs are going up.
Yeah, your costs are going up.
That's fairly reflective of, it sounds very admittedly simplistic, but those are wallet share items.
I won't be surprised if tomorrow, and that's, I think, also something that we wanted to touch upon, like when you said of Jio, as broadband prices go up, or as, mobile data prices go up, people are looking at them as utilities.
Yeah, they
more
are.
And more,
yeah.
right? It's like I have a right, I remember if in my home, the Wi-Fi stops working, everyone gets a bit uncomfortable, they start feeling the pinch of that, oh my God, it's almost like the electricity has gone out. Right?
Yeah.
So I think it's the same analogy at the end of the day. But in terms of the economics of it, I think I agree with you. It's a supply demand issue. But there's one thing that a lot of people think, or they kind of, assume about onions is that people hoard it. Right, suppliers, traders, they basically just wait for the price hike and then sell it off, and it's a supply side issue. But they are perishable, so that's only half the truth, I would say. Yeah. So because in the same article from BBC, they were kind of looking at an onion trader. His name is Manoj Kumar Jain. He operates out of this place called Lasan Gaon, which is Asia's largest onion market.
And it's called Lasan. Oh, that's garlic. That's got a garlic.
Let me see the exact name.
Yeah.
Let me find it. Where is it? Yes, Lasalgaon.
Okay.
LASAL.
Okay.
Right. So they have. So India has around 16 million tons of annual production.
Okay.
That's a number from 2014, not the recent number. I'm assuming it's higher now.
Yeah.
1/3 of it comes from Lasalgaon. So this guy is one of the big traders there, and he's saying that you cannot hoard it because it's very perishable. It doesn't last very long. Mm-hmm. So there's also I think the issue this time, and this is something that the FM also talked about, was that the size of the acreage and the productivity of onions themselves, that is a issue. So it's not the supply from the trader, it's actually the supply from the farmer side.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
That might be what's pushing. But it's an annual thing now. And I think what has happened lately, and this is something which Anish, you remember Anish Jain from Gramunati?
Yeah.
He was also talking about it that, ever since the MSP
One
push.
of our podcast guests.
Yes. I think that was in season 3.
Yeah.
He mentioned that, ever since there's been a big push on MSPs of rice and wheat, farmers are just more and more incentivized to grow a lot of rice. And as a result of that, and the same goes with onions, because the price volatility is so high, a lot of the farmers think of it as like they treat it as a cash crop, right? And they aggressively grow it, hoping it's like looking at the parallel of speculation. But it comes to speculation from a farmer's perspective. So often goes wrong, often goes right for them, right? And that all has kind of created this inherently volatile framework within our country, especially in a country where agriculture still is dependent on the vagaries of nature. So there are too many of those variables. Monsoons is a variable. In terms of price sentiment, that's a variable. MSP incentives, that's a variable. I mean, we keep on hearing like in Delhi there's so much pollution because there's like rice husk being burned. But one thing is that because of MSP benefits of rice, a lot more rice is being grown, grown and burned, right? So it's interesting to kind of how these different
interconnected
incentives actually reap out.
No, that's interesting. It's worthwhile keeping a close eye on how onions evolve and what it means for the Indian economy. But sure as hell, I mean, they're going to be a big political factor, right? I mean, you keep hearing a lot of sometimes irrational noise around it. It's like you said, everyone associates themselves with it's as common as one can get.
But
right?
it is politically very volatile because it can actually, be
backfire later.
It can backfire. It can be very damaging politically. So I think let's see where the entire conversation is going. I mean, meanwhile, I think I do know that a lot of imports of onions have kicked up. I think MMTC placed a onion import order of 4,000 tons from Turkey. Another 17,000 tons is being imported from Egypt and parts of Turkey. So I mean, that's kind of going on.
What else was on our agenda today? I know we want to spend like just a few minutes talking about the new regulations or sort of draft regulations that are going to come in the online or e-pharmacy sector.
I mean, it's interesting because pharma already, I think, pharma and healthcare in India in general is already kind of facing a lot of brunt when it comes to price caps, right? We keep on hearing of how stents are now being capped, and we keep on also hearing about hip replacement joints. Those price caps are kind of hitting both the hospitals as well as manufacturers. And online. By the way, do you order drugs online?
No,
like drugs. Sorry, do you order medicines online?
No,
drugs,
I've
I think.
I've never have.
You never have?
No. I guess I don't, because I'm not a regular consumer of a type of it. Maybe if I was regularly consuming something, then maybe if it was easier, I would have gone down that route. But I don't.
You just go to the local chemist and get it, right?
Yeah, like that is also if I need. So maybe once a year, if anything, I need. But that I've not gone. I don't. It's not a regular thing to do. So maybe that's why. But why do you ask?
No, because I think, as you mentioned, as people age, obviously, like if someone is on BP medication or someone is on, I don't know,
any antibiotic.
Any antibiotic. No, I mean, I was thinking of something more recurring, something that you have to take daily. I guess blood pressure is an easy bet. So
diabetes.
Diabetes. That's correct. So these guys, like people generally are getting on these kind of subscription type plans with online pharma companies. So they get like a monthly supply from them. And I guess there was a recent announcement on that now I think any online pharma player now technically needs a license. Is that correct?
So there are multiple things. I mean, first thing that happened is they've banned the sale of medicines over e-commerce channels. So e-pharma companies are sort of in a limbo on how to interpret it. But the regulations are still in draft stage, so no one knows how they'll evolve. But to your point, yes, you're right. Now they're saying that you need to be registered with the government in order to sell medicines. And one of the big reasons is they think that selling of incorrect medicines is very potent. The downside of it is very harsh. That is why they sort of want to regulate it more clearly and tie it up with mandatory prescription uploads and things like that. So that's how they're evolving. But as of now, they've put a blanket stop on it, saying that it's too damaging or too risky. But yes, they will need to be registered.
Who came up with the order? That was a court order?
Delhi High Court,
Right.
And Delhi High Court came up with the initial order, and I think it's being managed by it's called the Drug Controller General of India, who has directed all state governments to prohibit sale of medicines which are, any unlicensed mechanism should be put on hold. So,
but I'm sure the models must be like, there must be guys like, I don't know this sector in detail.
Yeah,
but I assume there must be different models, right? Some of the online platforms would just be probably aggregating offline pharmacies.
Yeah, and that's what the argument is. Like guys like NetMeds, PharmEasy, and 1mg, they're all startups which have come out in the last 4 or 5 years, right?
Right.
And they're well funded. And they say that they're completely fine because they're not affected because they transact with the customer through an online platform, through an offline pharma. They're just aggregators.
Right.
So they're
saying that the guys we supply the drugs from, they are licensed. So,
and they think, yeah, exactly. And they think for that they're covered by the IT Act 2000 because they use intermediaries.
Right.
So they feel they're safe. And they also themselves actually ask.
Do you think they're safe? I don't think so.
I don't know. It's hard. And they themselves say that their customers need to upload prescriptions.
Right.
For non-over-the-top or any specialist drug. So they feel like they're okay. But they also make the analogy between, let's call it a Swiggy, and they're like, Swiggy does not need a restaurant license to sell food. So why should a pharma company need a drug license to sell medicine? We're just aggregators. That's an argument that they make. I don't know how much steel there is in that.
It's a different product. Right?
It's a different product. It's a
consumer interest is that.
Yeah.
Much more. It's like saying that
one is completely discretionary.
Right.
The other is sort of life and death kind of a
Correct.
situation, right?
Correct.
But as long as these regulations, remain grey, it's going to impact the industry. I was reading somewhere that over 35,000 skilled professionals are involved in the e-pharma, e-commerce mode, and 50 lakh patients are pretty regular buyers. So that there'll obviously be some near-term, short-term.
Because I think a lot of companies, the fact that they are online, the entire fabric of urban society in our country is also changing, right? So there was a time when older parents used to live with their kids and someone used to be there at home to take responsibility and to get medicines and all that, right? This is purely anecdotal, but I've heard a lot of, like, when I was in the UK, a lot of my friends, they used to like bulk order drugs for their parents while sitting in London through one of these guys.
Oh, really?
And then they used to deliver.
Yeah.
Right? And that used to surpass not just medicine, even if it's like you need a nurse or a helper at home. There are so many of these platforms now which kind of enable you to remotely manage these things. And so it's the same with the online pharma. But it must be because it must be a bit of a hit, right? Because I was seeing that, I think it was beginning of this year, that there was a story which kind of said that, online pharma sales are supposed to hit like 25,000 crores in 4 years.
Yeah.
That's probably
going to come down now.
that probably is something which, guys must be worried about for sure.
I think e-pharma companies obviously will be affected. Pharma companies as such, I think e-channel constitutes only 5% of their overall revenue, so that's fine.
Right.
But the e-pharma players, sort of aggregators and the customers, there is a little bit of there will be a little bit of inconvenience and short-term burn. But what I'm more interested is, because it's such a gray area, what the final draft policy would look like. How will they manage it? Because I genuinely think it solves a real problem. For me, the aspect of selling online is nothing wrong. Yeah. It's about putting in the right checks and balances, quality control, and tech always has a solution. Yeah. Whatever it is, right? KYC, get a KYC done, or just cannibal prescription which are legible. There has to be someone who's being accountable. So for me, the idea of selling online I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah.
So let's see how those final regulations shape up. And there's a big lobbying force of offline pharmacists, by the way, who are very critical to this entire piece.
Right. Yeah. The thing is that, again, banning is never I just find this entire, temptation to ban. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Right. Why are you banning? As soon as you ban, there'll be like businesses which will stop making money.
Yeah.
And people will start losing jobs.
Yeah.
How is that a solution?
Yeah.
Fine. It's a disruption, right? It's a technology disruption. There was a time when people used to go to chemists to buy drugs. Now they buy it from their home.
Yeah.
It's happening everywhere, right? It's happening for pizzas, it's happening for food, it's happening for shoes, jeans. Now it's happening to medicine.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of, putting it in a regulatory sandbox, this is something that we kind of have talked about so many times.
Yeah.
That don't ban things, right? Put them under some sort of a transitionary engagement and then figure out the regulation around it. But I think banning just makes sure that new guys won't come. Investors will stop. Investors, I think, get psyched then. They then feel that the overall policy environment is not stable.
Yeah, they add a few percentage points in their discount rate
Yeah.
saying risk.
Yeah, exactly.
And valuation goes down, risk profile increases.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. So this entire kind of exercise, I just don't understand it. I mean, either it becomes either you ban things or you put caps on the price.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, and like in the last year or so, I mean, I think there are 250 online pharmacies that have come up,
right,
and they cover about 1,000 crores in sales. So
Right.
there is a party here which is going to get impacted. And I guess we wait and do what we do, which is look for policy updates and see how, and then do a deep dive on it.
Yeah, that's what we do, man. That's what we like to spend our time on, don't we? What else, sir? What do you think? So ILNFS reported 22,000 crores of losses on, I think, 800 crores of profit.
Losses? I thought they were flourishing with positive profitability. I'm joking.
So that's not happened. Yeah, and but yeah, no, I think this was as usual. Intellectually fulfilling conversation for me.
Yeah.
And I think we'll come back soon next week. And we are now also working on getting a few guests lined up, and that is that will be something much anticipated, I think.
Yeah, we've covered it so like multiple times, and I just like the whole structure around sometimes having someone, sometimes just you and me, and we've got an eclectic mix,
giving our listeners a much needed relief from our voices. And with that, it's been great catching up, man. And thank you, everyone. And would obviously love your comments, your feedback on our podcast. LongShorts. Also, obviously, give your feedback on Adda, which is our second series. Headed by Simi, Sebastian and Sudhanva Shetty. So do give your comments and feedback on that as well. And yeah, we'll catch up soon. This is Nikhil Arora.
This is Sharat Tupran.
Signing off.